Hi, welcome to our kitchen. Steve
and Andrea. What are we baking today, Steve?
We're baking chocolate chip cookies, which will be soft and chewy in the middle and crispy on the edges. They're simply delicious.
I can't wait.
So we're going to go through the ingredients. In the description of this video, I will have all the ingredients listed with their measurements. I find when it comes to a lot of measurements, they often give you, like flour, they give you cups and quarter cups versus weight. And I find I get a more accurate and consistent cookie if I use the weights instead of the cup measurement. So I'm going to be giving you the measurements in this description as I talk in ounces, but just know that in the description I'll also list it in grams, and also if you don't have a scale, which I recommend, I'll also give you how much in cups, or 3.5 cups or whatever it is. So let's start with the ingredients. The first ingredient is all-purpose flour, just regular old white flour, followed by 1/2 tablespoon baking soda. And make sure you're using baking soda and not baking powder. They're very different, give you different results. This one calls for baking soda, so make sure you're using baking soda. Now we're going to be using 14 ounces of butter total. We're going to melt 10 of those. They'll be melted, and then there'll be 4 ounces which we're not melting, and you'll see how they get used in a little bit when I get later in the recipe. Follow that, we have 3.5 ounces of granular sugar, followed by 5.25 ounces of brown sugar. Now this is dark brown sugar, which means it has more molasses. And the difference between light brown and dark brown is how much molasses. I found that it's going to give you a softer cookie with the more molasses, so that's one advantage of using the dark brown sugar. And the other advantage is it's got a stronger flavor, which will make the cookie taste better. So in addition to that, we are going to add a 1/2 tablespoon of salt. A teaspoon of salt, not that much salt, teaspoon. A tablespoon of vanilla. And I have here 2 eggs. And the 2 eggs, I'm going to use one whole, and one I'm going to separate into the yolk and the white. I'm only going to use the yolk. So it's a whole egg plus just the yolk. And of course, they wouldn't be chocolate chip cookies unless we had chocolate bits. And I have chocolate bits here. So the chocolate bits, these are a little larger than the Nestle's bits, which means when you bite in the cookie, I think you get a bigger blast of chocolate in one bite, so I like using the slightly larger bits. But there's options there. You can even just take a candy bar and cut it up. And how much you use is really how much you want to have in the batter. It's now time to melt the butter. So we're going to start the heat, and we'll see the butter melting. And I cut the butter up into little cubes because it just makes the butter melt faster. So we can see the butter is melting. Looks like melted butter. You can see I have little pieces left. I just have to wait for it to finish. And after the butter is finished melting, we're going to let it continue cooking on the stove until it gets to be a nice golden brown. Let a little water boil out. So now we're back looking at it again, and you'll notice that the butter has turned a darker brown. You don't want to burn it, of course, so I'm stirring, but you want it to get just a little bit more brown than just the plain yellow it was when it first melted. So I think we're there, and again, I don't want to burn it, so I'm going to take it off the heat now. While we're waiting for the butter to melt, we're going to mix in the 1/2 tablespoon of baking soda into the flour, and we're going to just use the whisk and mix it up so it's all evenly mixed in here. Whisk, whisk, whisk. I've now taken my 4 ounces of butter that I didn't melt initially, and I'm going to pour on top of it the 10 ounces of butter, which I showed you melting on the stove. So I'm going to pour that all in. And then using my whisk, I'm going to mix this together until all the butter melts. And it doesn't take very long because it's a war between the not melted butter and the melted butter, and the melted butter always wins. I guess when you have 10 melted versus 4 unmelted, the melted butter is going to win. To help facilitate the melting, I've used the whisk to stir it up so that the melted butter totally overwhelms the unmelted butter, and we have everything melted. Once the butter has been melted, we're going to add both sugars, the salt, and the vanilla. That was an accurate measurement, you could tell. And then using the whisk, we're stirring everything together to get it to be nice and smooth and totally mixed up. It takes a few seconds to get this stirred up, and you can see everything is stirred up. And once we have that done, I'm going to add the whole egg and the egg yolk into the mixture. And again, using the whisk, keep stirring it up until it's all mixed. And this is we're going to do for 30 seconds. So I finished whisking for 30 seconds the first time, and now we're going to let it sit for 3 minutes, and I'll whisk it again 30 seconds. I'll wait 3 minutes, whisk it 30 seconds, and basically we're going to have 4 whiskings for 30 seconds with 3-minute intervals in between. So it's whisk, wait, whisk, wait, whisk, wait, and then we continue on from there. It is now sat for 3 minutes after the first whisking, and now it's again whisk, whisk, whisk. We just need to whisk it up for 30 seconds, and this will be whisk number 2. And the important thing is we're trying to make sure that the sugar totally melts into the butter, and we want it to be totally mixed in, no sugar crystals unmelted, all mixed in, nice and even, nice and smooth. And you can see it's getting smoother. And again, I got to do this 2 more times. We're now in our final whisk, and you can see it's gotten thicker. I just need to whisk it 1 more time to make sure it's totally mixed. Again, we want the sugar to be totally dissolved into the batter. We want it to be nice and smooth. And I don't know if you can see it, but it's definitely getting smoother, thicker, and a nice consistency. We can now see that the mixture here is nice and smooth, somewhat thick, and we're going to pour in the flour. Using our spatula, we're going to gently mix it in so all the flour is nice and evenly covered. We don't want to do it too strongly because we don't want to put any more air bubbles into the batter. We just want to make sure all the flour is fully covered. So I'm basically scraping the sides and pushing it into the middle, getting all the things covered. So I'll turn the bowl a little bit to make sure I get everything. I'm pushing the spatula to the bottom, and I'm using a spatula. If I try to use the whisk at this point for stirring, it would just get stuck in the whisk. This is where you need to use a spatula to do this. So now that I've got it pretty much covered, and here it's time to add the chocolate bits. And I could measure, but we like chocolate bits. So I'm just going to take the whole bag and dump it in. And then using the spatula, totally mix it up. So everything gets covered. All the bits are evenly distributed in the batter. I like it nice and smooth and even. And we pretty much have it at this point. Doesn't take a lot to stir it in. Using these bigger bits, they stir in nicely. And it's going to give you big chunks of chocolate in your cookie, which is going to make the cookie delicious. So now it's time to make the cookie balls. I've liked using a cookie scoop. So this is a number 24 cookie scoop. It's just under 3 tablespoons per cookie, but it means by using a scoop, I get all the cookies to be the same size, which makes baking much easier because they're all consistent in size. So it's scoop, and plop, scoop, and I'm pushing the scoop against the edge of the pan, so make sure that they're all even. And I'll fast forward through the scooping of all the cookies. So we're down to the last bit of batter in the pan, and so I'll use a use the spatula to load the scoop, get it even, because this stuff is good. I don't want to waste any batter. I want as many cookies as I can get out of this. And unfortunately, we always end up with one that's a little bit on the runty side. Now you notice I didn't put these on a cookie sheet yet. These are on a regular plate. I'm going to put them in the fridge for 10 minutes. They're going to take them out because they'll cool enough. They're not going to be totally cold, but they'll be cool enough. I'm going to roll them into perfect balls, and then it'll make them cook evenly. So the cookies have been in the fridge for about 10 minutes. So I'm going to take each cookie and pick it up, roll it into a smooth ball. And this is going to make the cookies cook more evenly and have nice round shapes. So I'm taking them and making them into a total ball. And I'm going to do that for each one of these. So now on the last one. They're all nice and rolled. They're nice. If you look at them, you'll see they're nice, smooth, round balls. No rough edges to these at all. And I'm going to put them back in the fridge and let them cool for anywhere from 45 minutes and on. They sort of know how long you can go, so you can actually do this for a couple hours until you're ready to bake them. Or I say at least 45 minutes just to make sure they're nice and cold. They'll cook better that way. And into the fridge they go. So the cookies have been in the fridge long enough for them to become cold and solid. At least 45 minutes to an hour. Can go longer. It won't get colder than the refrigerator. But it's nice and cold. They're nice round balls. You'll notice how there are in rows that are staggered. This allows them to have enough room when they cook. They'll be able to spread without hitting each other, and it's a nice pattern. Now this is one tray. There's another tray identical to this. So we have a total tonight of about 20 cookies. So the oven has been preheated to 375. The cookies are now ready to be put in the oven. They go in the middle rack. We actually have 2 trays, but you have to cook them 1 tray at a time. I cook them for 12 minutes. The recipe says to cook them for between 10 and 14 minutes. For me, 12 has worked out perfectly. 12 minutes in the oven is up. It's time to take them out. So the cookies are coming out now. And I just want to show you, as you look at the cookies, you'll see that the edges are nice golden brown and the middle still looks a little puffy. And that's going to give us a nice soft center with a crispy edge. So the cookies are now out of the oven, and now it's time to try them.
Oh, I can't wait.
Let's pick one.
All right.
This one.
That looks good to me.
So I'm going to break it in half.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What do you think?
These are so good.
They're soft in the middle, crunchy on the outside. They're simply delicious.